Guys, finally, an organization has gotten the boldness and the courage to write to the Home Office to demand justice for immigrants. This organization is saying that the UK basically has the most unfriendly and unpleasant immigration rules when it comes to work visas. And they are demanding that the UK Home Office launches or comes out with what we call a workplace justice visa. Guys, this is interesting and I love it. Want to know the details? Stay tuned. Stop that. So the Work Rights Centre is calling on the UK Home Office or the UK Home Secretary to launch what we call a workplace justice visa to address the failings of the current employer-sponsor work visa. What we all know, Tier 2 visa, health and care worker visa, skilled worker visa. Yes, they are saying that there's been so many failings with this particular visa. And they are saying there's not based on what they feel like. They are saying there's based on research that they have done and based on comparing the UK's work visa migration rules and policies with other countries, with that of 6 other countries. So they're not just saying this based on feelings, they're saying this based on research and comparing what other countries have in place in terms of their work visas. I mean, we always say that the UK immigration or the UK work visa policies and rules is sometimes too harsh on us immigrants, right? We've always said this, but this particular organization, the Work Rights Centre, they've actually done a research, and after the research, they didn't just end there. They actually compared the UK's visa immigration policies in terms of sponsor, employer, COS system and all of that to other countries. And then now they've written to the Home Office demanding that they launch what we call a workplace justice visa. They are saying that if the current failings of the current system we have in terms of sponsor employer visa, they are saying that it fosters widespread of labor exploitation and potentially breaching international human rights laws. That's what they are saying. Now, why are they saying this? What exactly did they find in their research and why are they saying this? So for people who are watching me who have no idea what the UK work visa is about, let me quickly explain how it works. Now, so for instance, myself, I am a product of that kind of visa. I came through that route. I came at the time it was called a Tier 2 visa, and later, because I'm in the healthcare sector, they introduced what we call a health and care worker visa. But it's basically the scheme. If you are coming under the skilled worker route, the process is basically the same. One, you'd have to be in a job or an occupation where the UK has high demand for, okay? And then you find a job online, you do your interview back in your home country. If there are other obligations that you have to fulfill, like say write exams, etc., you do that. And then let's say you do an interview back in your home country, you get the job, and then your employer would give you what we call a certificate of sponsorship. Basically, this is what you need together with other documents to apply for your visa to be able to come to the UK to work as a skilled worker for this particular employer. But the sad part is that this COS makes you tied to your employer, and there are restrictions. You are coming to work for this employer who first brought you to the UK or who gave you this certificate of sponsorship. As well, you can only work for a second employer, but maximum 20 hours a week for this employer. And once you stop working for this employer, you immediately have to get, a job with another sponsor or another employer willing to give you certificate of sponsorship so that you can stay in the country. And most people sometimes, even though they're going through a lot of hardship, let's say they're being exploited at their current workplace, because they are tied to the employer by means of this certificate of sponsorship, they are afraid, and let's say they can't find another job, they are just there and they are being exploited, they are being abused, and they are just there, right? This and so many other things. And it is just not fair, especially if you compare it to what other people have in place, what other countries have in place. Now, the Work Rights Centre, they are saying that this is leading to labor exploitation and the UK stands at risk of breaching international human rights laws. Okay, so they should have a look at that. Now, for those of you asking what the Work Rights Centre is or who they are, this organization, so I honestly only heard of them when this article or when this news came about. Can't believe it. So the Work Rights Centre, they are a charity that helps immigrants. They help immigrants and disadvantaged Britons or disadvantaged British people to access employment justice and improve their social life. Right. So they help you with employment, justice, to demand and access employment justice. So when you go on their website, they have so much information, like as you can see on the screen. They have information for you if you, let's say, you're facing issues at your sponsorship job, your sponsor is threatening you that they are going to, take the COS away so that you go back to your home country when you have not done anything. They give advice mainly about, your rights as a worker in the UK, because most of us, we come to the UK and we have no clue what your rights are as a worker in the UK. It is not thought as part of the orientation process when you start a job. They don't let you know your rights, okay? Lots of people face abuse. I remember a story of this Nigerian lady, right, who she started a job, right, in a nursing home here in Northern Ireland, right? And everything was going on well until she decided to leave the job. Because the employer was like, we brought you to the UK, it's not fair for you to leave, right? When she was leaving, they brought up an issue and they reported her to the NMC, the Nursing and Midwifery Council, that she had done something. Meanwhile, it was an issue to deal with a urinary catheter, right? She says she was not even the nurse on duty that day, and it was a white nurse who actually did what was not supposed to be done, but this was handed over to her. But now they were putting all the blame on her, and it happened long ago. They only brought the issue up when she told them she was resigning. So it's like they don't want you to leave because they are thinking that they brought you out from your African poor continents to the UK, and now you've gotten wings, they've trained you to pass OSCE, you've gotten your license, and now you're leaving them. It's like an angry boyfriend, who doesn't want you to leave. You understand? So some employers can actually treat people like that, but unfortunately, lots of people go through the stress, they go through depression, because when this happens, we don't even know our rights. So that's why a charity like the Work Rights Center, that's what they do. They help people, they inform you, they help you know your rights. They help you access these rights and this employment justice if you are good, especially for immigrants and disadvantaged British people. Right now, like I was saying, they compared the immigration rules and the work visa routes for 6 different countries, and then they came out with the conclusion that the UK immigration is not helping us at all. There's a lot that needs to be corrected. There's a lot that needs to be done. So the research is actually a 37-page document, okay? And I'll leave it on the screen so you can see how it looks like. But I'll leave a link to it in the description as well so you can access it. It's a 37-page document. I cannot go through everything now, but I'm going to just highlight the important things in this document, okay? So now they are saying that, 1, some of the shortcomings of the skilled worker visa route in the UK, they are saying that 1, it makes you tied to an employer. Is so restricted. I mean, like I said, you can't even do anything. Look at me. I was with my employer for 5 years. There were days that I wanted to quit, but the fact that you now have to go and look for another sponsor, you now have to do this, and sometimes you're actually bound by a contract. They say you cannot leave until after 3 years. If you want to leave, you have to pay back this amount of money. It's just too restrictive. It doesn't allow you to live, and even if the work conditions are horrible, this thing makes you stay longer. For me, I waited at my workplace even when there were times I felt like leaving, until nobody restricted me in my personal case, right? But the thought of now going to apply for another job, applying for CEOs, getting a new sponsor, it was just too much for me. So I decided that no, I'll just wait until I get my indefinite leave to remain, and then I'll switch. And that's what I did. And I feel like I should have even left earlier, but because of all these restrictions. So that's one thing that they came out with. They also highlighted that while sponsored workers are allowed the right to change employers, doing so in practice, in actual sense, when you come to reality, when you're actually changing your employer, they are saying that it's significantly more difficult than it appears on paper. And this is comparing it to other workers who are not on visas, they don't need visas, and then their status in the UK does not depend on any employer, or people who have access to public funds. They're saying that it is significantly more difficult for somebody on sponsorship to get another job. Like, it's so the stress you have to go through, And story of a YouTuber I watched in the UK, she's from Nigeria, and then she was saying that she's a nurse and she's in the UK, and she was saying that she was trying to resign from her employer that brought her to the UK. When she was trying to resign, now they wanted to give her sort of like a bad referral because she was leaving them. Meanwhile, you people were okay with her, you people lived with her without any issues. She never went into trouble, never went to MDT, no disciplinary action against her, no. But when she was trying to leave, now you people were trying to make it difficult, trying to give her a bad reference. You understand? And sometimes some of the other new employers also sort of like believe the reference, and then it affects you. Now you're in between jobs, you don't know where to go. Like, this employer has given you a bad reference and you've resigned. Now you need another sponsor. Now how do you get a good reference? So all of these things is just too much, okay? So there's a second thing they came out with. And they also are saying that some people are exploited big time. I remember on my Telegram group, for those of you who are not part of my Telegram group, I'll leave a link in my Telegram group. As I mentioned, Telegram group, let me say a hi to my Telegram admin, Nodiville. She's an amazing lady. Hi, Nodiville. So one lady shared her contract to me on Telegram, and she was coming to work as a domiciliary worker. She was supposed to start work at 7 a.m. and close at what time? It exceeded about 18 hours in the contract, and she was so desperate she wanted to sign. I'm like, I've never seen this before. Like, this is too much, right? But that is the kind of reality that people are facing in here in the UK, right? So some of these people, they are underpaid, they are working excessive hours, unreasonable hours, and then very poor working conditions, but they don't care because they know that you are desperate, you need a job. And then in certain cases where the job roles even deviate drastically from what you are actually supposed to do. And they are saying that, these are not my words, let me read it exact words of the Work Rights Center. They're saying that some migrants have found themselves in conditions resembling forced labor, potentially breaching Article 4 of the European Convention on Human Rights, which prohibits slavery and servitude. Some people are like just being exploited in their work. Some people are working 40 residents to one nurse. Anything can happen and that this person can lose their license. They cannot properly take care of all these 40 residents. Should there be an emergency, this person's license is at stake, but they don't care. And the fourth thing that they came out with, that some employers exploit the workers and use threats of jeopardizing their immigration status to force them to stay in that abusive work environment and effectively silencing them to make any attempts to raise complaints. You do this, they'll remind you that they brought you to the UK, they gave you a COS, they will cancel your COS, they will do this. Too much abuse going on there. Now, the part that I like most about their research is this part that I'm going to say. They're saying that under the current rules as it stands now, workers have just 60 days from the end of employment to secure new sponsorship, a period that experts say is short for many to find alternate work, especially in a system with a lot of bureaucracies and hurdles. Now, we all know that lots of companies are now losing their sponsorship license. Now, without any fault of yours, you're working for an employer, this employer does not pay, let's say, a fee they are supposed to pay to the Home Office, and their license is revoked. Now they can no longer sponsor you as a worker. Now they take the sponsorship and the Home Office only gives you 60 days to find another job. How on earth is that possible when people who even live in this country take much longer to sometimes get a job? 60 days is just too short. It's not reasonable. You're forcing a person to become an illegal immigrant, you know, because it's just not right. 60 days. And these things, we've heard so many, and we've read so many articles saying that the UK has the most unfavorable immigration policies and all of that. And when you listen to some of these things, it's just not right. Now, these people came out with all these problems and even more, right? And they have also given recommendations. And like I said, this is a research comparing 6 other Western countries. Now, these are the recommendations that they came out with. I love their recommendations. Now, listen, they're saying that they propose a set of reforms aimed at rebalancing the power dynamic between employers and migrant workers and improving protection for those at risk of abuse. So chief among them is the introduction of a new workplace justice visa. So this visa is going to allow migrant workers who have experienced exploitation to remain in the UK while seeking alternative employment, regardless of whether their original visa remains valid. I love this. Guys, the stories I have heard of people, even my personal friends. I have a friend, even before she became a nurse, she had an issue at her workplace. The manager, who I strongly believe is racist, reported her to NMC for that she was force-feeding a resident, which was not true. At the time, she was not even a nurse. She was now coming, preparing to rise the OSCE to become a nurse. They reported her to the NMC. Now, when she got her pin as a nurse in the UK, this racist manager went to the NMC to say that, I don't think this person qualifies when the so-called force-feeding happened prior to her writing the exam to pass. But this woman so much does not want her to be a nurse that reported her to NMC that this person did this, and I don't think. There was a point, there was a time, I don't know if you guys remember, I don't know if I said this in my interview with the BBC, yes, that they even came out with a research that migrants, the BAME community, the Blacks, Asian, and other minority workers, we are more likely to be referred to the NMC than the other counterparts. Looking at our number, yet we are more likely to be referred to NMC than British people or Irish people. And they've also realized that some of these cases, the referrals are non-starters in the first place because every organization has a way that they treat certain issues. At least, like, there are some things that are not so huge that the disciplinary committee of the organization can meet with this person. You can decide to let the person go for training, suspend the person. Not everything has to go to NMC. A nurse shouts at another nurse and is at NMC over. They were referring Blacks and ethnic minority people way too much. To the extent that I remember sometime back in 2019, there was an article I got from RCN that said that now, if you are, I don't know if I'm putting this right, but it was basically saying that, like, if you're an organization or a manager, they realize that you're referring black people, they will now research into you as well. There was something like that. I don't know if I'm saying it right, but there was something like that. Guys, we have suffered as migrants. Imagine you come with your husband, you come with your 4 children, and a racist manager abuses her power and wants you to be miserable in life. And now, let's say they take your job away from you and you have only 60 days. Bear in mind, your children are in school, they are happy, you have a house, you have rent to pay. The trauma that some of our migrant friends and people have been through in this UK here. I love this law. And sometimes because of all these restrictions, that's why people still stay in abusive workplaces, all pending for that day that they'll get the ILR. This is not fair. And this is not me saying this. The Work Rights Center, they've done their research. They've compared 6 other countries, the immigration process and policies and legislations of 6 other countries in terms of their work visas. And they're saying that no, the way the UK's own is, it is risking abuse and it is fostering abuse and labor exploitation. Okay. Now, so they're saying that they should introduce a workplace justice visa where people who have gone through abuse at their workplaces, by their sponsors, they will have the legal permission to stay in the UK until they find an alternate job, because it is not by any fault of theirs, they were abused. And this should be regardless of whether their original visa is still intact, valid or not. And they are saying that similar schemes already exist in countries such as Australia, Canada, Finland, where they have proved to be effective lifelines for exploited workers. We need this in the UK. Somebody comes to the UK through no fault of theirs. They pass exams, they pay this, they come and the employer says, I don't have any hours for you. Automatically now you become illegal. You don't want to go back home. You've told them you will see them in 3 years' time. You've told them you're coming to work and get some pounds. Automatically now you're illegal because 1, you're not working for your employer that you said you're coming to work for. You don't have any pay slips to show. HMRC is not deducting any tax from you. Now you go to work for another employer who's paying you, but this person does not have sponsor license. So it's like now you become an illegal. It is not your fault. You have been abused. You have been abused. So you should stay in the UK until you get another job, another sponsored job, regardless of your current visa, whether it's still valid or not. And I love this workplace justice visa. Guys, if you like it, type it in the comment section. Workplace justice visa. Justice, justice, justice. And this is not even new. They're saying that it already exists in Australia, it already exists in Finland, it already exists in Canada. So if the UK does it, it's nothing new. If those countries did it and they are still flourishing, why can't we do it? Next, they are saying that to make this most inclusive, the route should be open to applicants regardless of the validity of their leave. It should grant them the right to remain and work for at least as long as their original work visa and be accessible in practice, including by adopting proportionate thresholds reflective of the wide continuum of exploitation that migrants experience in practice. So that even if it's not going to be a forever sort of like stay in the UK where people can also take advantage of it, at least this visa should be valid until the visa that you came with, the expected date of expiry. So let's say you were given 3 years on your visa. You come and then the employer is telling you, you come on the first month. You've not even done the full month. They tell you that they don't have any job for you, go somewhere. At least you should still have that 3 years to find another job. This makes sense. This is good. Now the final key recommendation is that they are saying that the UK should introduce a new civil and criminal penalties for employers who abuse the sponsorship system. The report also knows that while employers face serious consequences for hiring unauthorized workers, there are few comparable sanctions for those who exploit their legal employees. Establishing a tougher penalties regimen, the report suggests, could act as a deterrent while also funding compensation schemes for victims. And over 130 organizations and lawyers have signed this letter that was written by the Workers' Rights Center to the Home Secretary, urging the government to adopt these proposed reforms. Now, this is the letter that they sent to the Home Office. Okay, so they've written the Right Honorable Yvette Cooper, MP, Home Secretary, and then Dear Home Secretary, immigration policy changes to protect the human rights of migrants exploited under the work sponsorship system, blah, blah, blah. It's quite a long letter. And the names of all the people and organizations and the lawyers who have signed this, and God bless all of them on there. So we know that the UK government, they're trying to curb some of these exploitations. So now, if you're an employer and you took money from somebody before you gave them COS, etc., if you're exploiting them, blah, 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 now, they'll revoke your license and all of that. But we are saying that that is not enough. I know that now, the last video I did, I mentioned that they are saying that if you're in England and you're currently sort of like stranded because your sponsor has lost their license, don't worry, send your name to, I gave several addresses that you can send your details to, and they'll try and get you another job. Now they are forcing sponsored companies or licensed companies in the UK to employ migrants who are stranded in the UK first before they give jobs to people who are outside. And they're trying. Let's not say they're trying. fine. But I think these new recommendations from the Work Rights Center, endorsed by these 130 lawyers and organizations, I think would even help further or even be better if they adopt all of these. I like the idea of the workplace justice visa, and I like the idea of the fines, fining racist employers and abusive employers, okay, so they don't abuse us, because their power is just not balanced, because they have so much power, because in 2 seconds, at the snap of their finger, they can make us lose our status or residency in the UK. So because of this unbalanced power, it makes them abuse us so much. But if they know very well that even if you abuse this person and she leaves your job, she still has the right to stay in the UK for as long as 3 years or whatever, and on top of that, if she reports me, I'm going to be fined heavily, they will change their ways. They will change their ways. So basically, guys, that's that. But let's not also forget the reason why this was in the first place. I believe the UK brought this, sponsored work visa system so that people will not come to the UK and come and do another job, after your employer has, invested into your coming, and then you come and then you just go and do, let's say you want to be a makeup artist, you just come and then go and do a makeup artist job or whatever. I feel like they did this to protect the employer, but it was so much to protect the employer that they forgot that the employee or the migrant worker also needed some form of protection, which we never have gotten. And now this is it. What are your thoughts about this, guys? Comments below. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.